Good afternoon, members of the council, members of the Budget and Finance Committee, department staff, employees, department heads, and other guests. I'd like to welcome you to the budget hearings for Thursday, May 16th. The first budget hearing that we have today is the Metro Transit Authority. Before us today from the Metro Transit Authority, we have Mr. Paul Ballard, the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Ed Oliphant, the Chief Financial Officer, and Mr. Freddie O'Connell, the Board Chair, and also Mr. McIntyre, who is the Planning Director. Is that the correct title? Planning Director. Before we get started with the presentations today, I'd like to remind all council members that I will call on Budget and Finance Committee members first during the question and answer portion, and then I'll call on all other council members in the queue. I'd like you to keep your questions or comments strictly to budgetary matters, if you please can, and try to refrain from getting into other matters that do not have to deal with the budget, or I may ask you to refrain from commenting further. So, Mr. Ballard, before you begin with your presentation, I would like to ask you, are you pleased with the proposal that the mayor has submitted for your department in the budget? All right, you can begin with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also like to introduce in the audience today with us two other board members, Marian Ott and Gail Williams, who are with us today. And also our council liaison, Eric Byer, is here as well on the far left. Well, Mr. Chair, members of the Budget and Finance Committee, and other members of council, thank you for the opportunity to review with you the significant progress we have achieved over the past year. And our plans to build on those successes in the years ahead. None of these successes would have been possible without your help and support. For the first time in several decades, we provided more than 10 million annual passenger trips in this last fiscal year. That figure significantly represents automobile mileage avoided, air quality issues averted, and more residents arriving at their destinations with less stress. When the current fiscal year 2013 comes to a close on June 30th, we will have exceeded 10.5 million passenger trips. Our Access Ride program, which provides transportation services to people with disabilities, has also experienced a strong year, and we expect to close out the current fiscal year with a total of almost 370,000 trips. This continues our successful record of operating the largest transportation service of its kind for people with disabilities in the state of Tennessee. Fiscal year 2013 has been an unparalleled year in terms of expanding our public transportation services to new areas and new levels of intensity in Nashville and Davidson County. In North Nashville, our new University Connector began service in October as a crosstown route which connects North Nashville, its residents and college students, directly with Green Hills Mall while crossing 10 MTA radial bus routes, including the expanding West End Corridor bus route. This route, which operates 7 days a week, is now carrying over 8,000 passenger trips per month. This is a phenomenal record for our bus route that's only 8 months old. Our expanded service on Dickerson Pike, which also was implemented in October, has positioned this bus route as the 6th busiest in our system last month. This new service also expanded our bus routes to include Hunters Lane and Whites Creek High Schools in cooperation with Metro Nashville Public Schools. On April 1st, we doubled the night and weekend bus service in North Nashville as we ended a long-time practice of pairing routes together throughout the system in off hours. As an example of the public's response, our number 19 Herman bus posted an 11% increase in ridership in just the first month as a result of these changes. We implemented those same night and weekend service increases in April in East Nashville, as the Shelby and Scott bus routes saw the same service increases. The number 4 Shelby was also extended to connect with the Gallatin BRT Light, providing another transfer opportunity without having to come downtown. The number 20 Scott bus route experienced a 28% increase in April's ridership over the same month the year before as a result of this service adjustment. Our airport route saw added early morning and late night trips in April and are reorienting the service as an airport to downtown hotel service in preparation for the opening of the Music City Center this weekend. Service to Donaldson and Hermitage was increased in October as later night service was added on the number 6 Lebanon Pike route. A big change came to the Southeast and Antioch areas with the establishment of our second BRT Light corridor on April 1st. The 77,000 trips in the first month of the new service places it on track to duplicate the successes of the Gallatin Pike BRT Light, which carried 110,000 passengers last month. Our Nolensville service to the south was expanded last fall to increase service to the Grassmere Business Park, and this route, the Nolensville route, will be the focus of heightened scrutiny for expansion and streamlining in the year ahead, as it is our fourth busiest corridor for bus service. Service to the West End was increased last fall with increased frequencies on the Broadway West End corridor, so that we are operating the same frequency of buses today that we plan to operate should we be successful in funding the fixed guideway for this service, which we have branded the AMP. We have completed the preliminary engineering and environmental assessment for this guideway and anticipate beginning the final design work around Labor Day. Our Charlotte bus route has also been showing a strong performance as our fifth busiest bus route, with 47,000 passenger trips last month. Along with Nolensville Road, our Charlotte service will be the focus of heightened scrutiny for expansion and streamlining as part of the master planning process we'll be implementing in the year ahead. We're not planning any significant service expansions in fiscal year 14. We view this next year as a year of refining our existing services and the completion of a new 5-year master plan to guide us through the next several years. I want to thank you for all of your help in the past, and I earnestly ask for your support of the budget before you tonight, which will allow us to sustain the significant bus service expansions of the recent past, so we will be able to serve our residents and visitors with the quality of public transit service we all want to provide. As the MTA board and management team have pledged in the past, we will continue to provide the highest levels and quality of transit services possible based on the financial support that we receive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of council.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Councilman Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard, and Freddie, thank all of you all for being here. I'm a little slow sometimes, but I'm looking at what you all sent us, which I think is what you all sent to the mayor to begin with. You all list 3 different budget levels. The mayor funded you at your budget level 1, correct?
Yes, sir. That's
okay. So that you're not providing those other 2 as preferred options to us. You all are just laying out what you laid out to him, which would happen if cuts were made. Okay.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Sometimes you can share too much. All right. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. So it is funded at that top level.
Yes.
And then one other question: the route to the new route that goes to Whites Creek. That was, I think, funded initially with grant money.
Yes.
Does that continue, or is that rolled into this budget? I know it's in this budget, but is it grant money or is it operating dollars now?
It's still under the grant. We received CMAQ, Congestion Mitigation Air Quality, money to establish that route.
And folks are riding it?
Yes. Yes, that's doing really well.
Right.
That also helped to support our service on Dickerson. Dickerson Road is a bus route that we have a lot of ridership, and so that route services Dickerson Road as well, and it alleviated some of the crowding issues we were having on Dickerson as we expanded up to Hunters Lane and Whites Creek High School.
Right, and thank you all, as always, for your continued work to make the bus system more accessible to young people, and your work with the folks in the school system to help young people get where they need to. Your attitude and work is admirable, both for the community as it is today, but also for building ridership for the future. So thank you all for doing that.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman Stein. Councilman Tiger.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul, for being here. Refresh my memory on access ride and contracted services with cab drivers. If access, your drivers are routes are full, then you all have the fallback position for cab drivers. Am I correct there?
Yes, sir. That's correct. We have.
Go ahead.
I was going to say we try to provide all the service we can with our own operators and our vans, but we are limited based on demand from day to day. We've not actually turned anyone down in over 5 years for a trip on Access Ride. So what we do is we have a standing contract with one vendor, and we go out to bid periodically, and they provide what we call our overflow service. So once we assign all of our vans and our bus operators, then they handle the overflow on a typical day. It's less expensive for us than to have vans and drivers on duty, and then we don't need them. So we have a base that we know we're going to use every day, and then whatever comes in over that, we pay the cab companies, one cab company to do that service.
What kind of standards do you have? I hear a lot of comments from the users of Access Ride from the outer areas that cabs, would love to go to 12 South and pick somebody up to go downtown. I don't know if they get paid by the mile or a flat fee, but going to the Bellevues, Hermitage, Joltons of the world is a much longer trip out there, much more time consuming, and the level of service and just the overall satisfaction of the users, there's a lot of dissatisfaction. They love to catch the Access Ride, but if they've got to wait the cab, a lot of them have contacted me and they hate that.
Yes, sir, and everything you've said is absolutely true. And we work very hard with our vendor to make sure that their drivers are trained properly and have similar training to what we have. From time to time, we do tell the cab company that a particular driver is no longer welcome to service our customers. But when we review with our board, as we do every month, complaints, comments, and commendations, from Access Ride, we have the greater number come from the smaller number that is provided by the overflow carrier. It's a constant issue with us. We did just take delivery of several new vans, and so we hope to beef up our base service so that we can minimize the number of people using the taxi overflow. So we're just now placing those new vans in service.
Does a contract allow for penalties for non-performance or poor performance, or just hold that against them the next time you go to bid?
I don't know if we have a financial penalty, Mr. Oliphant. We'll take.
You can use the
There's a mic in front of you there, Freddie.
Our board actually raised that specific concern, and I think it is our intention that when we go back out to contract at the next opportunity, that will be weighed into the procurement process.
Well, the overall comment on the level of bus service and everything is positive. That is the real negative that I hear over and over again, and it's from these vulnerable riders that need our assistance the most, that we perform sporadically when the cab service comes into play.
I appreciate that in particular, and I think the board, even before my appointment, has long had a history of emphasizing Access Ride, so that when we have actually had to go back and look at service cuts in severe circumstances like the fuel crisis of 2008, et cetera, the board has actually taken extra measures to ensure that Access Ride ridership is protected, because we recognize the significance of mobility for those users in particular, and that I expect that is a trend that will continue.
Thank you, Councilman Tigert. Councilman Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Continuing along with the Access Ride conversation, could you tell me total how much that program accounts for in the budget, your budget?
It's a very significant dollar amount, and Mr. Oliphant has that at his fingertips. While he's looking that number up, we have 13,000 registered users of the service, and as I mentioned in my introductory comments, we'll provide 370,000 trips this year, and it's a real lifeline for a lot of people in the community. Approximately $7.5 million is dedicated to Access Ride.
And of that $7.5 million, can you tell me the funding mix for that? Do we get federal dollars for that program? And then
Yes,
are
sir.
there state dollars? And
Yes, sir.
can you kind of give
Absolutely.
me those breakdowns?
Absolutely. The funding that we receive comes to MTA to operate all of our services. And so essentially, we get 50% of the cost to support MTA comes from Metro, from the general fund. Approximately 25% we collect in fares, and the other 25% is divided between the state and the federal. The federal is about 18% now, and the state's about 7%. So that really applies equally across the various services that we do operate.
Okay. And so you mentioned your strategic planning process. I assume Access Ride is going to be a part of that conversation. Do you have any idea by what increment you might like to or need to increase that program going forward?
Access Ride over the years has been the part of our program that has consistently increased. Just a few years ago, we had 10,000 registered users. We're now at 13,000 registered users. It's an important part of our program, and we will focus on that as part of our master planning process to see how we can make any improvements or make any adjustments in the Access Ride program. We work very closely with a group called the Access Ride Policy Advisory Committee, and it's a very active group of riders, users, and supporters. We meet with them monthly, and so we have dialogue on a regular basis with them as to how we can improve, change, adjust, modify, and so on. So I think that we stay very close to the pulse of the interest in what's going on in that program.
Is there a fundraising component or a charitable component that could go toward funding the Access Ride? Is that interest group, do they raise funds for that program?
No, these are primarily users of the service, and that's not something that we have actually looked at as far as fundraising for that. It is a significant aspect of our budget, but they do pay a fare. They pay double the base fare on the bus. The base fare on the bus is $1.70, so they pay $3.40, which is still a small percentage of the actual cost. But we've really not looked at any outside fundraising other than through the federal, state, and local grants and the bus fares that we collect.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman Harmon. Council Lady Moore.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a couple of questions. One of them is, I didn't notice, you also have a contract with Metro Schools to move students around when they don't have bus passes?
We have an arrangement with Metro Schools where they buy bus passes from us and they distribute them to the students. It's not actually a contract, or do we actually? It's not a contract,
okay.
But they pay us the established rates that are established by the board for youth transportation, and we work very closely with them. We manufacture and provide smart cards for a lot of the students who ride regularly. We have some one-ride passes that they buy from us, and they also do buy some multi-ride passes from us as well.
Okay.
This year, I think that's at about $850,000 to $860,000 in sales to the schools.
Okay. And my other question, I'm looking at your budget level scenarios. Could you explain to me what is including the additional incremental costs? What does that mean? I have page 102 in our handout.
Yes, ma'am. Just give us a second.
Okay.
Is there a letter in front of that?
No, it just says on budget level 1, it assumes same basic levels of fixed route bus service, including additional incremental costs. And I was just wondering what that meant, incremental
Okay.
costs.
Ed, would you like to handle that one?
In this budget, we are proposing actually no new services, and what that represents is the incremental costs, i.e., we had fuel prices that increased. For the same level of service, we had higher fuel costs, we had higher labor costs, we had several costs that were going to go up regardless of what we did, and that's the incremental increase that we had in our budget.
Okay. And my last question, I'm coming from our book, is on J46. I know that we just had a meeting regarding shuttle services. And so in your strategic issues, in your accomplishments as well as in your strategic issues, you talked about identifying additional grant funding. And what could that be? What type is that? What type of, I'm looking for my handbook now, this book here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I have it right here.
Okay.
And we put that in there because Jim McAteer to my left is our Director of Planning and Grants. And he and his folks have been very creative over the years in identifying grant sources, and we've been very successful. We've been able to identify federal funds, state funds, and we are constantly looking for opportunities to generate funds through these grants. So that's really what that addresses. And it could be any type of grant. For example, we just were made aware of and won a grant from TDOT, Tennessee Department of Transportation, $50,000, and it's to do litter cleanup. And so what we've done is we're establishing an adopt a bus stop program, and residents and community groups can actually adopt a stop. We'll provide them with the necessary equipment and cleaning supplies and things like that, and they'll volunteer, just kind of like adopt a highway. And so we look for opportunities like that, and we're very successful, and we frequently win them. So that's really, I think, the point we were trying to make, is that we really are on alert for any opportunities for grant funding, and we pursue them.
I'm hopeful that when we had the meeting, I think it was a couple of months ago, that you can still look at some type of exploratory services or shuttle services that could be looked at, because I looked at some of your partners in here under the accomplishments and look at those employers as well as trying to move people around from point A to point B, because there is lack of services in the area, and that exploratory shuttle would be something that would be really, could be something additional to the area as well.
Yes.
So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Moore. Councilman Bettany.
I thought I was going to be last. I have a question about when people have issues with the services. Do they have a way to call in? And I know it's not exactly budget, but I was wondering if budget is impacting in the follow-up on community complaints. I mean, is there a way to keep track of when people have an issue about service? And how much teeth does it have when somebody presents a complaint?
This is actually something that one of the board committees addressed over the past year, where our transportation committee specifically sought to get some insight into responsiveness to customer comments. And we do have two primary channels. We have a phone number that is available and printed on every bus stop, and generally I think is available on buses and other materials as well as customer comments at nashville.gov, an email address that allows people to submit comments, and those range. We actually see in committee reports the different breakdowns that those range from compliments to suggestions to complaints and criticisms and those kinds of things. So we actually see that broken out monthly, and then additionally we actually asked for additional insight to ensure that we were fulfilling requests, or we actually do a review process where if there is something, we're frequently able to go back and look at data captured from the buses to see if buses were, for instance, running ahead of schedule, which is, in scheduling terms, that actually becomes a problem, or if they're running too far behind, or if a bus missed a time point or a stop or something like that, or passed someone up. We're actually able to use that data, and then we actually see time to resolution of those requests that come in through our various channels. So the board has a fair amount of insight into that, but staff has also been very responsive in adapting to that. I think one of the things we also saw that impacted the statistics was actually indirectly a budgetary concern, but it was when the flood caused us to relocate from our Nestor headquarters and lose access to an automated phone service we had called Trip Tuner, which we're in the process of bringing back online. So there are things that we do actually look at from the board perspective in terms of the budget and how that impacts customer service, but I think from a service approach, we're sensitive to that, but I will say staff is as well.
So I just want to make sure that when there is a complaint that there is a follow-up, a real I'm saying that, and it's not you, but I call a cab company, one of those numbers they have outside, and 2 months ago, I'm still waiting for a phone call back. So I'm glad to know that the MTA is following up with things. I also want to say thank you very much for the services. My daughter goes to NSA, and she loves the independence of being able to ride the bus all the way to Lenox Village. So I appreciate the work you guys do, helping these children be able to go to school, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Bettany. Councilman Pardue.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here. I've just got one quick question today. The extra money this year, $4 million, is that going to help pay for the bus routes and stuff, or are y'all planning something to spend that money for? But just in looking back, it seems like y'all getting anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 or $4 million every year.
Yes, sir. No, that's a good question. And over the current fiscal year, starting last July, we expanded our services quite a bit. And but they were only for portions of the year. Like the service that started in October, we only needed 9/12 of the money. And then the service that started last month, we only needed 3 months of the year. And so what's happening now is we need to fund these new services for a full year. And so that's the bulk of the increase, is to support these increased services that were started over the current fiscal year. And then additionally, there are some health insurance expenses, and then our fuel, even though we are protected with a fuel hedge, and we're still saving significant amount of money, fuel is still going up 20 cents a gallon for diesel, and the same amount for gasoline.
Okay, but now, are none of the new routes or anything, they're not paying for themselves?
Well, in public transportation, we find the average that we can generate is about 25% of the cost of the service comes from bus fares. And then the balance is made up through federal, state, and local grants. So, but it's a good question, because the new bus routes, of course, start a little more slowly. When you implement new service, it takes a little while for people to get used to it. So our what we call our fare box recovery ratio is generally lower when you start a new route, and then over time it builds up. If it doesn't build up, then that means you need to take another look at the new service that you added.
Okay. Well, I'm not questioning anything y'all doing. I hope you understand, in times when we can't pay our employees what we told them we was going to, you get questions on why can we not get what's coming to us, yet the bus company is getting $3-4 million extra every year. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman Pardue. Councilman Holloman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Ballard. I just want to follow up on, I think, the same question that I asked last year, which is I still miss the credit card machines. And I just wanted to see, I know you were talking last year about the possibility of trying to bring those back, and I understand there's some security complications, but I just wanted to revisit that with you, and if you could tell us where you are on that, and if you think in this fiscal year it's possible, and if not, what your forecast is.
Unfortunately, it's still high on our list of things we want to do, but we still haven't developed what I think is a safe and secure approach to accepting credit cards on the buses. It still goes back to the real-time transaction issue, and then this recent worldwide heist of $45 million with people emptying out cash machines just made me even that more nervous after I saw that. So we're still looking at that.
And related to that, and I know that now when I go to the Starbucks, you can load your gift card on there, and they can just swipe it. And is that something that's in the foreseeable future, to have an iPhone app that allows you to pay? I mean, I know some systems do that. Is that maybe a more viable option? Although I'm a little concerned that might not be as available to as many users as credit cards would be. But can you
Well, the
comment on
interesting
that?
thing is we actually we do monthly surveys on our bus routes, and the percentage of our bus passengers who own iPhones is over 50%.
Wow, okay.
Smartphones, yeah. That actually own smartphones is
Freddie's
over
younger.
50%.
He can help you with that.
He's my tech guy on that stuff. But it's over 50%. I don't remember the precise number, but it was in the low 50s actually do. And so we're seeing that number increasing over time.
I mean, that just seems to be a more secure way, and I actually wouldn't have guessed it was that high. So.
Well, we would not have either, and we're somewhat surprised, but it's over 50%.
Have you looked at, because I know you did have some losses, and I understand you can't necessarily predict when you'll have a security breach that would be a real loss. But have you looked at how much bump in ridership you got because of that convenience as compared to your loss? It still strikes me like the increased ridership you would get due to that convenience would offset, the few people that find a way around it. But I'm just curious.
See, I believe, like you do, that it does generate extra ridership, but I can't give you the number.
Something quantified. Okay.
But I agree with that.
Councilman, to that point, we've made a number of adjustments in just the past several years that address people using cash fares. I mean, I think we're now down to 20-something% of boardings actually using cash only, in large part because we've actually increased the availability of vending for fare-based media, both at Music City Central, which didn't exist before 2008, and in a few other locations that you can get those fare-based media. Most people who are boarding the buses now are already using a more convenient fare approach than just change in their pocket or whatever. So
really,
and that's been a significant change because the ratio used to be almost reversed, and so in just a few
recently,
years,
right? I mean, that's a fairly new statistic, right? Okay, because that's one of the reasons for my concern.
Yeah, although I'm like you, I actually had people address it to me personally when we ceased being able to offer credit cards. I think there will be a time in the future, but I really would not want us to go forward either for our own financial concerns or for the security concerns that passengers might have that somehow there could be a loss of any kind. So I think we're still evaluating it. I think the board also is interested in anything we can do to allow greater diversity and particularly non-cash fares, because the other thing that does is that improves our on-time performance.
Well, that's another reason I thought of it too. Okay, thank you for your time on that.
All right, thank you, Councilman Holloman. Councilman Tiger?
Yeah, Paul, your budget includes repairs and maintenance of your shelters and areas where your riders wait for the bus.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Do you charge, I know you charge advertising for bus benches and whatnot. The companies that place the flyers and the advertising, do they pay a fee for the right to put their racks in your area? Or is that possible or legal or not legal?
Okay, are you talking about the
employment guides and the coupons and the reason I say that, it has to increase your cost because those areas stay cluttered all the time.
They do, and unfortunately, it's on the public sidewalk, and we're very limited in what we can do. We move them outside of the shelters so that the passengers can still get into the shelters. But what we try to do is focus as much as we can to get them to advertise on the buses, on the benches, on the shelters, which we do share in the revenue for that.
Do they share in any responsibility of the maintenance of that area in terms of cleanup if people abuse and read the coupon and throw it on the ground or leave it on the bench and the wind blows it to the ground? That's your responsibility.
Yes, and fortunately, Public Works is our hero. They work with us so closely, and they try real hard to keep up with that and assist us in that. So it's a job.
John, maybe there's something legally we need to begin exploring, or maybe that's the newspaper rack issue to revisit.
Yeah, it's the news rack. I mean, the council passed an ordinance that would have regulated and addressed that, and the previous mayor vetoed that ordinance. So at this point, there is no...
Sign me up. Let's talk about that again.
Thank you, Councilman Tiger. Councilman Claiborne?
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Was the cost of your relocation and build-out paid for in the budget that we're coming to the end of, or do you still have monies to complete that process in this new budget?
There's no money in the new budget to deal with that. We were able to get significant federal funds to help with our build-out.
So you're completely paid for your relocation and your build-out. Okay, so...
Well, if I could add one caveat, we still have the Metro Police Precinct is in the basement of our building, and once they move out, we'll need to complete our renovation of that bottom floor. But it's my understanding that we have federal funds allocated for that. We haven't received them yet, but they are targeted. That's correct?
Okay, so you have been in your new location how long now?
We moved the offices last June, so it's almost a year.
Okay, so almost a year. So are you seeing a trend then in, as far as your plant operation, that it's more economical where you are? Are you seeing your air, heating and air and all of those plant costs that you were paying in your old location, is that improving since you're in a new place with more efficient systems?
Our new facility is LEED Silver, and so we have all of the energy-saving devices installed in that area, and so we are seeing lower utility bills. But I do need to clarify that we are still using the Nestor Street garage, and we're using it because we have to maintain a base close to downtown to minimize our expenses of buses traveling back and forth. So what we've done is, in Madison at that facility, that's now where we have our administrative headquarters. We do all of our heavy maintenance, body shop, paint shop, and all that is there. The Nestor Street garage is an operating base where bus drivers come, get their buses, and they go to work starting at Music City Central. But what's different now is that we have no buses out of service at Nestor Street. That's strictly an operating base. So if we ever are faced with the river coming up again, we can move everything completely out of Nestor Street up to Madison in 4 hours and operate everything from that location.
So with the savings that you're seeing in your new location, is that covering the cost of operating Nestor? Are you basically even?
No. There's been an increase. But,
there has?
But by using the LEED approach, we've significantly reduced our expenses that it would have otherwise been. So we've built a redundancy so that we will always be able to operate our service. When we had the flood of May 2010, we were completely out of service for 3.5 days. And so what this allows us to do is to have the two operating bases, and should the water come up again, we can operate everything from Madison. Should something happen at Madison, we can operate everything from the Nestor Street garage downtown.
Right, I understand that. I'm just trying to get at the economics of you have two locations. You have one primary location and then a secondary. And I'm just trying to understand in your budget here, do you have significant dollars because you have two locations now, or have those operational costs, those plant costs, dropped so that you're really not having a significant plant operation?
With two properties, those expenses have gone up. But with the growth that we've been experiencing, we could not have expanded at Nestor Street to provide all of the service that we're providing now. We needed a second location. The flood provided the impetus to move forward and do it more quickly than we might have otherwise. So,
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman Claiborne. Councilman Lady Dow.
Thank you. Jason asked one of the questions I had about paying using the credit card or the bank card. But I had another question to ask, and I always ask you about that MTA bus link that we have out in the Antioch area. We get a lot of calls about utilization of that bus service and the route not going in like certain stops people utilize. And I was wondering if you have any information on like how much it costs for us to offer that bus link service and what the utilization is of it that you could provide to us.
The bus link service in Antioch is not generating the ridership that we thought it would. Being very honest, we set a goal of 2.5 passengers per hour, which is one of our measures, and we're just barely at that level. So we know we're going to have to do something different. What we have identified is that the Walmart that's out in that area is a significant passenger generator. So we're looking at making some changes in the Murfreesboro local bus to make it start serving the Walmart on a regular basis. And we're looking at some alternatives as to how we can adjust and change that Antioch bus link with our fall service changes. We're just starting to have those discussions, but we use the bus link as a vehicle to determine what the demand is in a particular neighborhood for service. And when we did it in Madison, it was just overwhelmed with ridership, so we converted that to a regular fixed route. We're not seeing that in the Antioch bus link, unfortunately.
I agree with you on that comment. Do you have any information about the cost? What it's costing us to run that MTA bus link service?
I can provide you the exact dollar on that particular bus route. It's $350,000 a year, but we do have a federal grant that pays for all of that so far, and that would be expiring this fall. Yes, sir.
And I was going to make that point, that this goes back to Paul's earlier point that Jim and his team are exceptional at pursuing other sources of funding. We've actually been able to use grant funding like this to use the bus link process almost as a way of discovering future fixed route service, and not every scenario that we go into with it does it reveal something that could become ultimately a successful fixed route service. But a very successful example of this was the Madison bus link service we ran for a time that actually revealed some potentially successful fixed route service, and now Madison has some new service levels that were a result of this. And again, in Madison, that bus link service was not out of general operating funds, but was rather grant funded.
I think that's good. I don't want to lose the bus link service, but I do believe that there is an opportunity to better utilize it where it serves the neighbors out in our area a lot better. And I spoke with you, I guess, it's been last year or maybe before. We're organizing, this has nothing to do with the budget, but I'll say it anyway. We're organizing a little Southeast Tri-Transit Day to really teach a lot of the people out in the suburbs about riding the bus and how to catch it and so forth. So I'm working with my bordering council members out in our area to organize a day to have our neighbors ride transit together, come downtown, enjoy the day, and then ride back out to the suburbs. And we're very excited about our BRT Light. I'm glad to see funding in there for it. I know that it's going to be more successful over time. You mentioned about not making any changes and adding any additional routes. I thought I heard you say that when I came in.
What I said was that we're going to be working on refining our service and beginning the process of our developing a new master plan in this year. We don't have any significant expansions to propose, but we'll constantly be adjusting our services and tweaking and so on. We do that all the time, but we're not going to be proposing any new BRT lights in the next 12 months. We don't have any major projects like that. We're just trying to catch up with what we've already started.
Okay, well, that sounds great, because one of the questions I get is about, we could pick up more people utilizing the service if we had another stop along West End near Vanderbilt in the HCA hospitals, because we have quite a few people that work out in that area. So I look forward to working with you through the year to potentially see how we can incorporate stops near that location, and that way we can build up a higher utilization of our mass transit service out in our area. So thank you for all the good work.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Dow. Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you guys for being here, and sorry, I missed a little bit of the first part, so if I hope I'm not redundant on anything. Just had a couple kind of random questions. First thing I was wondering is, as you know, I saw some of the goals, like with the pollution and efficiency. What percentage are we up to on hybrids at this point? And I thought I saw, is there an all-electric bus as of yet?
Two questions. Number one, as far as the hybrids go, we just took delivery of 10 new hybrid articulated coaches in this first quarter of this year. And I don't know the precise number, but I'm going to guess that we're probably right in the 20 to 25% hybrid. But I can certainly clarify that and give you a precise number. As far as the electric bus, your question is very timely. We won a grant from the Federal Transit Administration last year for over $3 million to purchase and implement what they call zero-emission vehicles. And that's most likely going to be battery-powered vehicles, but there are also there's also the possibility it could be a fuel cell bus or something like that. And we have some additional money in our capital budget, and we are actually issuing a request for proposals on Monday to the manufacturers for those vehicles. We've developed a performance spec, and we anticipate using these vehicles in our downtown circuit. So we could put the charging station at the Riverfront train station, where all the buses come back to every 15 or 30 minutes, and we could do a quick charge. And so we think that that's going to be the ideal use for the zero-emission vehicles, which will probably be the electric
That's
battery.
the circulator?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, that was one of the other questions I had was has the circulator traffic been really good thus far since we've had it a couple years now?
Yes, it really has been, and it continues to grow, and we've made some changes April 1st. The blue and the green now serve the new convention center directly, and the purple route now goes directly from this building, the courthouse, to the Howard School, and we're already seeing increases there.
And Councilman, I think it's worth mentioning as well that board and staff are in pretty close alignment around the importance of fuel efficiency in the fleet. And another detail that wasn't directly a part of your question, but I think is worth mentioning in this context is that for non-revenue service vehicles, basically for administrator vehicles and other things, we actually now have, as part of the fleet, a Nissan Leaf as well as a Chevy Volt for kind of looking at the vehicles that are not in revenue service, also ensuring that that portion of the fleet of vehicles is becoming fuel efficient.
Excellent. With the circular question, one of my wouldn't it be cool thoughts was kind of as we go along, and obviously it's been successful with the downtown, wouldn't it be cool if we had a couple other circulators? You know, we kind of have this dream about a little East Nashville circulator as little pocket neighborhoods and little fun spots keep happening in Nashville as our urban core redevelopment continues. I know you said you're not doing anything in the next 12 months. Obviously, we're not doing another BRT light and obviously not another circulator, but is that in your heads at least as far as like another circulator as this thing gets more popular?
I think that's a great topic for our master plan. We'll be looking for a lot of input from all of you, and we'd certainly love to consider that.
Okay. One other thing, growing large employers, I know it's a big deal, like you have all the state riders and you guys have done a pretty good job with, is there an initiative, do you have like a staff person, like are you trying to gain more of these large employers as far as riders?
Yes, every day we're out doing that. Eric Beyer, who also doubles as our council liaison and who's with us today, is visiting businesses virtually every day. And we've had very, very good luck. And I can tell you truthfully that I think the principal reason that we have been able to increase ridership over the last few years is specifically through programs like that, where the state, we're billing them for almost 50,000 trips a month. Vanderbilt is 45,000 trips a month. We have Belmont University, we have Lipscomb University, and a whole host of private companies that participate. And that's really been our secret weapon to build ridership and to get more people on the buses.
And I'll tell you that the stories that come out of Easy Ride in particular, when people discover how much of a benefit it is to accentuating their commute from the workplace. You know, I've heard countless anecdotes, including one where, you know, in the instance where a car broke down for a couple of days and was going to be out of service, well, all of a sudden there was a combination of Music City Star, which is an RTA service, and then the corresponding circulator and other services that reach the riverfront, allowing that person to leverage an employee benefit. And all of a sudden you had someone who pretty much changed his commute, right? So that kind of story comes out of Easy Ride all the time, and it's one of the reasons that every time we actually add a group of people to that program through a large employer, some portion of those people become regular long-term riders.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic. And Eric does a great job for us too, by the way. I'd love to compliment him since he's here and always really responsive as you guys all are. So thank you for your time and the great work.
Thank you, Councilman Davis. Seeing no other council members in queue, gentlemen, this concludes your budget hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry we took you long. No,